Good morning, everybody. How are you? The devilishly handsome Ian Dixon. Good morning, sir.
Shut up, for f***'s sake. Jesus.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show, Rise Up show with me, your host, Danny Wallace. Sorry I'm late. It's actually, there are exciting reasons why I'm late this morning, you lot. And it is because we are decorating here at IATQB HQ. So the painters and decorators have just arrived this morning. And in here, I don't know whether you guys are actually going to see it or not, but this wall here is going to... that wall there, if I don't trash the gap, is going to be like bare brick wallpaper with like loads of art all over it. And then so as you know, I'm in my bedroom, and the big wall over there is got some really lovely, bloody lovely wallpaper on it. And I've just messed with my life here. Hang on a minute. Talk amongst yourselves. Let me get the stand for this little bee. Incidentally, Becky Parson from Daisy and More, her hubby had that 3D printed for us at Be Inspired in September, and it is. I bloody love it. So yeah, we've got the painters and decorators in, which means I'm at 6s and 7s. But I'm here nevertheless. I've made it to the show, Rise Up show this morning. I hope you're feeling good. I hope you've had a lovely weekend. It's been a really interesting one this weekend. If anyone has got a bit of a Father's Day hangover, either through drink or emotion, I am with you. Not through drink, but through emotion. It's a funny one. When there are like awareness days or celebratory days that are directly attached to things like parents and siblings and all of that sort of stuff, it can stir up a lot, right? It can stir up a lot. And Father's Day for me particularly is a really tricky situation in my head, and it has been for a long time. And it's not something that I speak hugely openly about. I always feel compelled to write a little bit of a cryptic something on or around Father's Day. And it all comes back from the sort of building blocks. So when I do my talks, short Rise Up talk, I talk about the things that informed a lot of the decisions that I made when I was, a teenager or, in my early 20s and what have you. And the information that I had caused me to make decisions through lack of self-awareness as well, lack of therapy, caused me to make decisions that had really not great outcomes, right, for me. So those of you who don't know my story, I experienced domestic abuse generationally. So I watched my family experience it. Every single woman in my family experienced some degree of domestic abuse, be it emotional or physical. They experienced firsthand either addiction or their perpetrators being addicts. And for us, for the kids that were growing up, the cousins that were growing up, that impacted us in lots of different ways. And when eventually, the relationships around us kind of broke down, it left us with different perceptions of men, different perceptions, particularly of dads for me, that then went and continued. So, if I look at the majority of the men that had been in my life, I can't say the majority of men that are in my life right now, because I'm very intentional about the men that I have in my life right now. And also, if I look at you guys, we've got Paulie who's watching along this morning. We've got so many incredible men that are in this network, that are a part of this community, that have helped me realize that it isn't just the majority of men actually are inherently good people trying to do good things. The construct that we have, particularly around dads, I find really tricky. So when I'm seeing on social media the abundance of incredible dads out there, it's hard sometimes not to go, oh God, I wish that's something that I had. I wish that is something that I was able to provide for all three of my kids. And it leaves me feeling with just needing to sit with my emotions. It's also the first Father's Day without my father-in-law, who was inherently a really great man. My dad's in a care home. My stepdad isn't very well. There's just lots of things that are going on. So yesterday, I allowed myself to jump off of socials and not kind of be in it and on it, and protect my heart a little bit, and also have a really big cry. And the reason why I want to share that is that a lot of you will see the things that we do and the things that we create, and that's like a real roller coaster. That's a real like 180 on the kind of week that I had last week. So the week that I had last week, I was speaking at Atomicon, I was making incredible connections, I was hanging out with my community, and then the weekends kind of brought a different kind of dynamic and a different kind of roller coaster. And for everybody that's out there, everybody has this. So not everybody has that particular thing around Father's Day, but everybody has layers to the life that they are experiencing. And it's remiss of me if I don't say to you, hey, do you know what? This particular frame of time is generally difficult. Is that something that I need to work on? 100%. Was I able to carve some space for myself to sit in my feelings, whereas I might have drank my feelings away previously? Yeah. So, healing's an ongoing thing, and something that, over the course of this weekend is something I've had to be really intentional about. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster, but interesting nevertheless, and staying curious about how I'm feeling about things, and actually being in a position where I have a support network that I can either say, I need to talk something out, or I don't really want to talk today. I just want to hold a little bit of space myself. I think it's really important. How did you guys find yesterday? Who loves Father's Day? Who finds it bittersweet? Who finds it painful? And you don't have to share if you don't want to share. It's a bit of a morning brew, just kind of clearing the air again after the thunderstorms of the weekend. So just to connect with you this morning and say, it's been an interesting one for me emotionally this weekend. It has highlighted things that I still need to work on. It's highlighted things that I still need to talk through and heal from. And I think that for a lot of us, we often expect that when we've experienced something in particular and we feel like we've dealt with it, sometimes these things have a way of kind of coming back and biting us on our arse. And just when we think we've sorted a layer out, it peels back another layer, and then you feel exposed in a different way. And I think that if everybody looks at their own healing in terms of it's an onward journey and never a destination, then I think that that's easier. I've been following a musician lately, a guy called Ren. I don't know if you've come across him or not, but he is incredibly talented, insanely talented, and also struggles with his mental health. And there is a song that he's released called Hi Ren. And essentially the song is a battle between his light side and his dark side, right? It's the battle of the polarity of his personality. And at the end, he was like, where mental health is concerned, and for me, where healing is concerned, it's never David and Goliath. There are never winners and losers. There are victims and there are students. And that was really profound for me, that for us, those of us that have decided that we're on a particular healing journey, that understanding that there are victims and there are students, when we become students of ourselves and students of psychology and students of trauma and students of our lives and students of healing, that it becomes easier. And another thing that he says towards the end of the track, which is kind of like spoken word, is the more that you kind of fight against the darkness, and the more that you fight against. So yesterday I went through a whole roller coaster of beating myself up for feeling sad, of beating myself up for feeling guilty, and for making poor decisions in the past. One of the things that I always used to say was, I am writing, I already knew at the time when things were particularly bad that I was writing checks for my kids that I was going to have to cash. and they weren't going to be good things. They were going to be things that they are loose ends that one day are going to need tying up. They are things that are happening right now that is going to require healing from and work in the future. And at the time, I remember feeling guilty. And as these checks are being cashed now and the fallout from those decisions are apparent, there's a whole new wave of guilt that sits alongside it. And then there was this sort of relief when I realized that I could just sit with that and go, it's okay to feel like that. And it's okay to feel hopeful that actually, because I'm aware of it, we're getting through the other side of it. And that's the beauty of life, as much as it is the pain of life, right? And that there is this, once you stop fighting how you're feeling about it and soften around it and learn to dance with it a little bit, that you realize that it isn't a fight, that it's a pendulum. And for lots of us, the pendulum will swing really darkly in one direction, but knowing that this too shall pass, that the pendulum eventually swings back towards the light. And a lot of us in this community are change makers, thought leaders, people that are trying to make a difference in the world, which means that when the pendulum swings towards the light, we do these incredible things. But that also means that in polarity with that sometimes is a degree of darkness. And when you understand and be soft around that you can start to move through it, and it's quicker and easier to move through those pendulum swings than it is when you're fighting it. And when you're fighting it, you're racking yourself with guilt and you're racking yourself with extra pain, and you're layering on the pain onto yourself. That actually, therein lies the fight. And actually, when we soften around it and understand that this is the nature of the beast, we become students of it, and it becomes easier to work through. So quite profound beginning to the show, Wise Up, Rise Up show today. But whenever I've been feeling big feelings and I'm through the other side of it, I like to kind of share with you my reflections on those sorts of things, because again, being a part of this community isn't about, I've got the decorators in today, isn't about papering over the cracks. So these decorators have got here today, and they've actually, somebody originally came up to price the job up and said, oh yeah, it's dead easy. We're just going to throw these, pieces of wallpaper up. And actually these guys got here and they was like, that won't work. If you just paper over the cracks, the quality of the wallpaper that you've got, because I just like the print, right? I'm not an expert. I don't know what I'm looking for. It will shrink. So we'll put the paste on the wall, and we'll put the paste on the paper, and that will expand. And then because it's like tissue paper, it's going to retract, and we're going to do half a job because you're papering over the cracks. When actually, what we need to do, are you okay? Oh, actually, what we need to do is we need to sand the walls down. We need to put lining up. We need to make sure that in 2 weeks' time, this paper isn't going to retract and curl back from the walls and look shit. And that's an incredible metaphor this morning for the work that is continually needed as we are growing in these spaces, as we experience things like Father's Day, for those of us that find it difficult, Mother's Day, Christmas, all of those things. Understanding that we can go back at any time and relook at those foundations, scary as it is, more expensive as it might be, actually sets the standard for the rest of everything that happens. So in accepting that these guys have come in this morning and have said, right, actually, no, we need to line these walls. You need to go and buy some lining paper. You need to get more paste. You're going to probably need to pay us a little bit more in labor. But what it's going to mean is that this wallpaper is going to last and last and last you. We would rather do that than do half the job and just paper over the cracks. And it's really interesting that sometimes these metaphors serve themselves up to me just when I need them, and just when I need to kind of articulate that with you guys. So yeah, interesting thoughts and insights this morning. How are you all feeling? Are you good? Mother's Day absolutely hurts me. Lost my mum 12 years ago, but also wanted it to be amazing for Mrs. Paulie. Yeah, and that's the very interesting, very delicate thing. So if I look at Wallace, for example, Wallace has a relationship with all three kids, and it's very different for each of them. They all have a very different experience. So Ivy is biologically Wallace's. And they have a different, very, very different relationship than Daisy and Wallace. Eli and Wallace have a very different relationship. And sometimes it's painful and sometimes it's difficult because of the nature, because of the checks that I wrote so many years ago because of the way in which I've dealt with the situation. Does that need more work? Yes, absolutely. And I wanted Father's Day to be nice yesterday, and I spoiled quite a bit of it for myself, not necessarily for everyone around me. I didn't like inflict that on the kids or what have you. Meanwhile, I had a really good chat about it, but I want it to be nice. When you really want something to be nice and it's at odds with how you're actually feeling, you end up kind of forcing something. Whereas actually sitting with how we're feeling is absolutely necessary sometimes. And just saying to the people around you, this is how today makes me feel. I don't need it fixing. I can't fix it for now in this moment. But what I do know is that the pendulum's going to swing in a different direction once I've allowed myself, instead of fighting how I'm feeling, I'm going to have a big cry. I'm going to allow myself to be held by my support network. I'm going to reach out, or I'm not. I'm going to be quiet and have a sleep. I had a big cry yesterday too. It wasn't fun from a place of sadness as much as how far I've come since my dad's passing 4 years ago, and how I feel he's really picked up the baton and supports me spiritually. It's very soothing. I'm not sure who this is, but I'm sending you a huge amount of love because I get that. Yesterday was sad. I was thinking about my sister-in-laws, and I was thinking about my mother-in-law, and how painful this is. One of the big firsts off of the other side of my father-in-law passing, and sort of being very separate from them yesterday. It's just lots, isn't it? We navigate these things and we often don't allow ourselves to articulate it. We feel shit today, or we feel sad and we rebel against the day, or yeah, it's interesting. Pressured occasions, it's definitely a thing, Jojo. Didn't get a minute to speak to my pops, Jojo was saying yesterday. And it's always a strange one to know there's a guy out there that's my biological dad. What does he look like? Does he like pink? Is he short or tall? As a kid, I convinced myself he was the Hoff or James Bond. I take this day to appreciate the good guys. Shout out to Mr. Sass, and he heads up our blended family. Huge shout out to Jay, who is an incredible guy who does head up your blended family. Huge shout out to the good guys as well. And this is a talk that I'm actually working on. And I've been working on it in the background for a couple of years. I don't feel ready to share it yet because I still feel like I'm on a big journey of learning and understanding, not just of the whole thing, but of myself and the relationships that I have directly, and still navigating those. But I have a talk that I'm working on called A Few Good Men, ? And that's an exploration into, where are the inherently good men? How are we creating those? Have we created those already? And what is it about, like the patriarchy, for example, that is making it difficult for our good men to be the loudest noise instead of, and this isn't like, I'm having a feminist rant and I hate men. I love men. And I love masculine energy, and so much so that I like being around it. But why is it so many people feel like me, where Father's Day is really sticky? Again, a profound experience at the Asda's, buying Father's Day cards. And there was a woman who was there with her partner who was buying a Father's Day card for her dad. And she was stuck in a way that I often feel stuck when I'm buying Father's Day cards for my dad or whatever. In that, there's a lot of these Father's Day cards that are like, best dad in the world, greatest dad in the world, tells all the good dad jokes, or is all of these things. And I could tell she was struggling. She actually said out loud, there isn't one here that's okay. There's not one here that feels all right for me to buy. And I was like, oh, it's not just me. Because I know me and my sister have the same struggle. Like, what do we get? And I don't delve into here online the relationship that I have with my dad. It's very, very complicated. He has an acquired brain injury. He lives in a care home now. We do care for him. We care for him deeply, and we love him, and we love on him. But that doesn't make the relationship any less complicated. It doesn't make the feelings towards that relationship any less complicated. So when it comes to Father's Day, what do you do? Like, thank you for all the things that you do. Well, he doesn't, and he stopped doing quite a lot of that before his accident. How do you navigate that? And it just made me feel less alone, and I wanted to make her feel less alone. I was like, it's hard. Is that a difficult spot for you as well? Like, I got you, girl. And she was like, yeah, I really struggle. I struggle to buy cards that are appropriate, that just are like, that acknowledge the person, because I don't want to be ignorant, or, you know, I do acknowledge the person and I love the person, but is he the world's greatest guy? And do I want to feel at odds with myself by getting him a card to say accordingly? No. Does he do loads of things for me? Am I thanking him for all of the things that he does for me? No. Like, so then what? Like, is there one that just says, Dad, it's Father's Day? Like, what do you do? So yeah, again, that was like a little bit of an experience that I had over the Father's Day period that again just solidified the fact that there are so many people who have this difficulty with guys and with men and with fathers, and it's definitely something that from a spiritual point of view and a mental health point of view and a healing point of view that I continue to explore and continue to navigate. So today isn't like, oh God, I'm feeling so emotionally drained, emotionally hungover, because actually having a big cry at the same time as a thunderstorm was like a massive channel like unblocker for me, like flushing the toilet. But yeah, it's been an interesting one. It's been a really interesting weekend off of the back of the pendulum swing from such light and such incredibleness and wonderfulness last week to come through to then that really kind of like crying on the bed, like I didn't think I was going to stop crying situation. It is funny, isn't it, this journey that we are on together, my loves? And again, just something that I wanted to kind of share with you this morning, because I am on the other side of it. I'm not talking to you here from this place of like deep pain and trauma and stuff. But yeah, it's a funny old situation. Sarah, hello Sarah, who I got to spend Friday with having our one-to-one strategy day, and had such a wonderful time. There is a definite market for Father's Day cards that just say it's Father's Day. Like, I don't want to be so rude as to not acknowledge it. But on the flip side, do I have a whole heap to say about it? No. I spent ages hunting for the least gushing ones I could for my ex when my daughter was little. Yeah, it's interesting. He's like flushing the toilet. Yeah, let that turd go. Yeah, absolutely loved Friday. What else he's saying? Joe Wilson, hello, Angel. I avoid Father's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas, and that's okay too. And you can. And sometimes it's about making new traditions. Sometimes it's about allowing that day to be a day of healing. It's, you know, it's about getting through those dark bits and those strange days as best you can, and being aware that that's how you feel about them and being okay. And it never being the line in the sand. Like, I know I'm not always going to consider Father's Day as this really big painful day and I'm carrying so much shit around with it. But then it's being intentional about, okay, so how do I make it nicer? How do I put less expectation on myself around it? How do I put less expectation on the men around me around it? Do I just ignore it? Like what? But then it feels rude in a way that I don't want to not acknowledge people. I'm kind. Very funny. Very interesting. Create new traditions, yes. I keep out of the way so I don't get triggered and react, and I don't piss on everybody's bonfire. Yeah, because I'm not a total wanker. That's the thing, isn't it? It's that it's one of the only things that I find quite triggering, and I don't bandy that word around lightly, to be triggered. And it's probably one of the only areas in which I am when it comes to that. I get annoyed with the unjustness of it for so many people, the unfairness of it for so many people. And then I absolutely adore seeing people who've got wonderful dads. Like, I think, God, I'm so happy for you. I look at my nieces and my brother-in-law, and I look at my brothers-in-laws, and they're just amazing, like incredible human beings, and I'm so lucky that my family get to experience that for them. But I just feel this sense of like injustice when I was like, do you know what, it is so necessary for kids to have strong, safe, stable men around them, kind men, good men around them, as much as it is to have really good women around them. And conversely, so some people have this experience around Mother's Day, right? And some people have never experienced good women in their life. And I totally understand that it's like horses for courses. it just feels like to me statistically in my direct circle, the way in which I grew up, what I experienced even when I was at the ASDA, is that more people are having a less positive experience around fatherhood and people's fathers. And I want more of these good men to be seen, and I want to lift more of these good men up. So much so that we're intentionally doing that within the IATQB community, is finding good men and sharing them. You know, when we talk about safe, inclusive spaces, it's making sure that men feel safe and included within that as well, to share their masculinity, not to share their feminine side. Or, you know, it isn't about that. I'm not hoping that men come into the IATQB community to all of a sudden be super feminine. It triggered me. New moon and the storm too. Not a good day at all. It's funny, the energy of the whole thing, right? Really, really interesting. So yeah, that was then. I was thinking yesterday there should be a day to celebrate daughters and sons. I think there is. I think it's just like, how much to Hallmark make from it. Hello, you look like you're there waiting for something.
Trying to convince.
All right. When I can't. I'm live though.
No.
All right. Okay. Cool.
Right.
I'm working with a great man this week. He gets life. I love that. To show I'm not a total wanker, I bought Paddy a kebab to share with the dogs because he's an all right dog dad. Tracy, I lost my dad 18 years ago, but at the time he was alive, I couldn't find the right card because our relationship was stretched. Yeah, I mean, the card finding situation is real, really real. Like, it's Father's Day. Like, it should just be that. I don't know if any of you make stationery out there and you've got some ideas. Do that. I think there's a market for it. Go in. You've got an avid. You'll have a customer over here. So, what else do I need to tell you before we head into this week? A little bit of a outward processing with you all this morning, and hopefully, you know, in that, if those of you have felt difficult about, you know, the whole Father's Day weekend, feel a little less alone in having this conversation, sending you loads and loads of love if you have got a little bit of an emotional hangover this morning, or if indeed you've got a bit of a cheeky drinking alcohol, if you had a lovely time. We ended up going out for a lovely meal last night, and it was really nice. And we stayed quite flexible with how everybody was feeling, which meant that nobody really fought, which was great. Because when you've got teenagers, if anyone else has got teenagers, we find there is a lot of friction a lot of the time. So going out for something nice to eat and that being quite a peaceful experience was really nice. So yeah, all's well that ended well. So FYI, a couple of things that are happening that you are going to want to know about. One is the Swarm. So the Summer Swarm is a tour that I do of the UK that where I hire out some rooms I think we're doing Manchester, Birmingham and London, potentially Glasgow if we get enough taken up. We're for 12 of you to come and work with me on your strategy for the next 6 to 12 months. So really to zoom out of your business. I do it every year. We have a great time. It's a fantastic touring situation. I get as many of you together as possible in small groups. Tighten up the nuts and bolts of your plans, visibility plans, how you're speaking about your business, your product suites, how you're going to sell them, how you're going to bring them to market, when you're going to sell them, when you're going to bring them to market. Make those solid plans for you to then go out and execute over the next 6 to 12 months. They are brilliant days, great connection, great networking, and also everybody in that room will understand where you are at that particular point in your business. So you've got running buddies and accountability buddies, all down south or abroad again. Get out, you. So yeah, they'll be around the 397 plus VAT mark. That's going to be going on sale. So we did a poll in the IATQB Hive over area. We're going to throw out some dates. I only have a few dates. It's going to be in July, so they're quite imminent, but there's only space for 12 on each of them. So if you do want to come and work with me as part of the Summer Swarm strategy sessions, it's a lot of S's, seashells on the seashore. Please do. When we open the doors to that in the next few days, make sure you bag your space. It's brilliant. We have an absolute blast. You get swag, you get lunch, you get strategy, you get hugs, all of the dead good stuff at a fraction of what it costs to work with me one-to-one. If you do want information about one-to-one strategy days, such as the one that Sarah White had on Friday, please do get in touch. I have just 3 of those over the summer that you can come and get involved with if you want. I don't do them very often. It's I only want to work with people who are ready to work with me in that capacity. But if you do want to work with me one-to-one, I have a couple of one-to-one days available over the course of the summer to get you ready for sort of the autumn winter on into 2024. Oh my goodness. I think that's it for now. Get your peepers peeled for moving the show. We're in the middle of decorating. We've still got work to do with studio. We've still got work to do with format. We've still got work to do with guests. I am queuing up some absolutely phenomenal guests for you for when we open the show at Wise Up Rise Up Show for membership and for subscription. I'm very excited for all of you to get involved. I know it's something that you've been wanting for ages, and also it helps me provide you guys with so much more value instead of me just processing stuff after Father's Day. But hopefully you found today a little bit cathartic, helpful, something to think about, food for thought, even if it's something that you've not necessarily experienced yourself, to give you a little bit of insight over, you know, when people have awareness days or days that are kind of highlighted or celebration days, that for those people that find it difficult, it's okay to find it difficult. It's an ongoing journey. Healing is never a destination. There is always another layer. It is painful. It is messy. It is glorious. It is beautiful. I'm glad I get to do all of that with you. I'm glad that I get to share these experiences with you as well. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful week. I will see you on Wednesday for more Showing Up, Wising Up and Rising Up. Take care.